Good morning, and happy Easter. Now you think I'm a week late, right?
40 days.
Today is the celebration of Easter in the Orthodox Church. Now, why is it today and not last Sunday? Well, the Orthodox Church uses the Julian calendar, which was superseded about 400 years ago with the Gregorian calendar. So that's why they celebrate it. Interesting, huh? So there's a couple other important things that are happening today. Today is also, raise a hand. Who grew up as an only child? Today's your day. It's Only Child Day. Yep. And to celebrate, I suggest you have a grilled cheese sandwich because it's Grilled Cheese Sandwich Day. Try to say that 3 times in a row. That's pretty tough. Okay. So it's been great sitting under John's leading in the last several weeks of the study of Isaiah. I just so thankful for all the effort he puts in and the preparation he does, the videos that he has for us, or the PowerPoint that he has for us to enjoy. You're the best, John. Thank you very much. So today we're going to look at Isaiah chapter 26, and it's a really great chapter. John reminded me that he gets to do all the negative chapters in Isaiah, you know, all the woe and things are going to happen that are bad, and I get to do all the happy stuff. So I suggested the Lord's trying to teach one of us something. I don't know, maybe both of us. Well, chapter 26, well, what we've seen in Isaiah so far is that he's expressed a lot of sadness and a lot of depression over the state of the area where he's living, in the country that he's living, but he's also been exultant over the glorious prospect of the future. So he sort of has this bipolar or contradictory feelings, but they're very real. He's got this tension between the promise of the then, out there something's going to happen and it's going to be wonderful, and the pain of the now, what's going on in his life at this very time. And I think that's something that most of us can relate to, that we have pain now. Like, I was sort of irritated at Pastor Ron this morning. He took a lot of my message. But we do have pain. We have pain in health sometimes. Sometimes we have pain in economic issues. Sometimes we have pain in relational issues or spiritual issues. So I think many of us, if not all of us, have experienced pain, but at the same time, we have this confidence of the future. And the confidence is based on the histories that we enjoy with our Savior. We can look back and we can see his faithfulness, and we can look forward and be comforted that that's going to continue in the future and he's going to be there for us. And we're called to remember. And that's something that, if you recall, the Jews were called to remember back in Joshua. Remember, the Jews crossed over the Red Sea, and this commandment was given to them. I'm going to read out of Joshua. When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, "Choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing, and carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stay tonight." So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and he said to them, "Go over before the ark of the Lord your God in the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan," speaking of the ark, The waters of the Jordan were cut off. The stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. And that's what we're called to do. We're called to create these memorials of how God has blessed us, how God has been for us in the past, in difficult times, or even in times of great blessing, to be able to have those memorials that we can look back on and have confidence that God was there and God will be there. And that's sort of going to be the message here that we're going to see in Isaiah chapter 26. The first 6 verses of the chapter are celebratory. Isaiah is really happy. He's happy about what's going to be happening in the future. And then the next 12 verses are reflective of the pain that he feels and that the nation feels waiting. And that's something I think, again, all of us can relate to. We have this anticipation of a great thing that's going to happen, but having to wait is really difficult. Think back when you were a kid and it was your birthday. Think back when you were a kid and it was Christmas. The waiting was painful. And we're going to see that pain is in the entire nation of Israel as they're waiting for the future redemption of the nation. And then the last 2 verses of the chapter speak to the final victory that's going to happen. So verses 1 through 4 speak to the redeemed remnant singing praises to God because Jerusalem is going to be impregnable. It's going to be a fortress, and they're going to have security in the peace of that city. A great promise, considering that city's gone through a lot up until that point. So verse 1, it says, in that day. Now, whenever it says in that day, it's speaking about the future events, probably the millennial future. It says, in that day, this song will be sung in the land of Judah. Already, unlike poor John, who has to deal with woe and distress all the time, here we have a song that's being sung. And the song is sort of a curious song. I don't know if Adele would sing this, but it says, we have a strong city. God makes salvation its walls and its ramparts. So this is speaking about the millennial Jerusalem, God's future city of prominence. And in Zechariah, it speaks about this, what this city is going to look like. I just want to read this to you. And this is just a great section here, a great section of hope, especially when you look at the world as it is today and what's going on in the Middle East. It says, then the survivors from all nations that have attacked Jerusalem will go up year after year to worship the King. Does that sound amazing considering what's going on today? That all these nations that are attacking Jerusalem are going to change, they're going to turn, and they're going to go and they're going to worship the King, the Almighty, it says, and to celebrate the Festival of the Tabernacles. Now, the Festival of the Tabernacles is still being celebrated even to this day. When Jane and I were in Jerusalem, do you remember? You walk around the streets and they have these little booths that are constructed that are temporary. Sometimes they're just made out of cardboard or plywood or something. And the more Orthodox Jews will live in those booths for 7 days. And the reason they do that is to be in remembrance, again to the memorial, be in remembrance to their time of wandering in the desert, where they were living. They didn't have permanent residence. They had temporary residence, and they didn't have the comforts of the permanent abode. So the people here are called to worship the King Almighty, the Lord Almighty, and to celebrate the Festival of the Tabernacles. Celebrate God's faithfulness in bringing the Jews to the Promised Land and setting up the city of God. And it goes on to say, well, I'm not going to read that, but it goes on to say if people don't do that, they're going to suffer the wrath of God. So they're either going to return to the Lord, even the enemies of Jerusalem, or they're going to suffer his wrath. I'll read that. That's actually sort of fun. If any of the peoples of the earth do not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord Almighty, they will have no rain. If the Egyptian people do not go up and take part, they will have no rain. The Lord will bring on them the plague he inflicts on the nations that do not go up to celebrate the festival of the tabernacles. This will be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all the nations that do not go up to celebrate the festival of the tabernacles. So a line's being drawn here. You're either going to go up and celebrate the Lord, or you're going to have his wrath upon you. Let me just read about the festival of the tabernacles a little bit here. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, on the 15th day of the 7th month, the Lord's festival of the tabernacles begin. It lasts for 7 days. The first day is a sacred assembly. Do not do regular work. For 7 days present food and offerings to the Lord, and on the 8th day hold a sacred assembly and present food offering to the Lord. It is the closing special assembly. Do no regular work." So, wow, 3,000 years ago this was mentioned, and it's still being celebrated today. It's pretty amazing. So the new Zion is being created, and it says that God makes salvation its walls and ramparts. Now this is not a spiritual salvation that's spoken here. This is a salvation from Israel's oppressors. And it speaks to the issue that God is going to protect the city of Jerusalem allegorically by creating walls and ramparts. They're going to be a strong city. It's going to be highly defensible. And now that it's all secure and everything, how does the city of Jerusalem respond? Well, in verse 2 it says, "Open the gates that the righteous nation may enter, the nation that keeps faith." So Isaiah is looking at the future Jerusalem, that where the righteous may enter, those nations that have changed their view on God and the Jews, and a nation that keeps the faith will be coming into Jerusalem to worship the King. And they're going to do that periodically. It says year after year. And Jerusalem, we have Jerusalem as our inheritance as well. And I'll refer to you in Revelation. It says, where John says, not John Holland, the real John, "I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from heaven, prepared as a bride beautiful, dressed for her husband." There will be this new Jerusalem. Isaiah is predicting this 3,000 years ago. It hasn't come yet, but it's coming. Verse 3 says that the city, now it says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you." So there will be peace for those that are unbelievers that turn their heart to the Lord. And what they're going to enjoy is a perfect peace. And then in verse 4, we sort of have a coda that in this recitation here. And it says, "Trust in the Lord forever. For the Lord himself, is the rock eternal." Now notice in that one little verse, the word Lord is mentioned 3 times. So that must mean it's pretty important, right? So it's trust in the Lord forever. For the Lord himself, is the rock eternal. Who is that rock eternal? Well, if you go back to Daniel, in Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue, it's the rock that destroys the statue. And the rock is Jesus. So again, 1,000 or 1,500 years prior to Jesus coming onto the scene, Isaiah is predicting that who he is and what he's going to be able to do. And what's the admonition? That we trust in him. And why do we trust in him? Because we have the history that allows us to have confidence to trust in him. And And what's Jesus going to do? Verse 5. He humbles those who dwell on high. He lays the lofty city low. He levels it to the ground. He casts it down to the dust. The lofty city. The lofty city is one that's made by pride of human efforts. It's not created out of God's will, but out of human efforts. And he's going to humble those efforts. And he's going to lay that city low. He's going to level it to the ground. And he's going to cast it into dust. Fully destroyed. Why? Because of pride. And that's the result of people who don't trust, who pride in themselves rather than trust in the Lord to do things. They pride in themselves to build, to create things, rather than looking to God to say, give him direction on how to proceed. And then this is a great verse, number 7. Feet trample it down. And whose feet? The feet of the oppressed, the footsteps of the poor. And when I read this, the first thing I thought of was the Sermon on the Mount, right? The meek are going to inherit the earth. And this speaks directly of that. Who's going to trample down those cities that are made out of pride and out of human effort? It's going to be the feet of the oppressed and the footsteps of the poor. They're going to trample over it. What a great promise. Then verse 7 says, the path of the righteous is level. It's not an uphill battle. It's a level walk. It's an easy walk. God is making it easy because he's giving us the strength to be able to do that. The path of the righteous is level. You, the upright one, make the righteous smooth. Make the way of the righteous smooth. And how do you do that? Through the acceptance of Christ as your Savior and being obedient to him. And that's what Isaiah's looking to in the future. The path is going to be straight. It's going to be flat for the feet of the poor and the needy. And even though we have the pain now of situations, in the future, that path will be an easy path. Then verse 8, it says, yes, Lord, walking in the way of your laws, we wait for you. Your name and your renown. So this is the issue of waiting. The key to redemption is waiting, having key dependence on God, not relying on human devices or schemes, but patiently waiting in trust. And the way they wait, this is, I think, a really great thing. And it struck me because I'm not waiting, I have to admit, I confess, I'm not waiting at the level that it's asked to do here. It says that the desires of my heart are for his name and renown. My soul yearns for you in the night. In the morning, my spirit longs for you. When you go to bed, the feeling is yearning for God. When you wake up in the morning, your feelings are longing for God. I have to admit, that doesn't happen every day for me. I'd like it to, but that's the level of belief and trust that Isaiah is calling people to have. And then it says further, when judgments come upon the earth, the people of the world learn righteousness. So the pain that comes is a catalyst for people to see what's going on and turn to the Lord for help, for salvation, for a path to obedience, and to become righteous. And in verse 10 it goes on to say, but when grace is shown to the wicked, they do not learn righteousness. And isn't that a curious thing that we see even today? God's grace, his activity in this world is so evident. I mean, all we have to do is look out the window. We see God's creation and marvel at that, the huge blessing. And yet the wicked, it says, and we know this, they don't learn. They're oblivious to it. And why? Probably because of pride. Pride. human pride, thinking that they can do things better than God. And it goes on in verse 10, said, even in a land of uprightness, they go on doing evil. So even amongst the Christians, even amongst the believers, even amongst those who are trying to do right, the wicked will not change their ways. Even though they observe what's right, they will continue to do evil. And I think probably the only reason that we can ascribe to that is because the prince of the power of the air is in control. That Satan is the prince of this world, and he's putting those evil things and the wicked things into their lives. And it says, even in life, they continue to do evil, and they do not regard the majesty of the Lord. And we see that. We see people turning away from an understanding of God's majesty. Everybody in the world should be in awe. We should be on our face in awe of God's majesty. And all we have to do is look around us. Not only look around us, but see everything that's happening where God's in control. Again, looking back to the memorial, looking to our own lives, seeing how God has blessed us and protected us and been our guide.
Look what happened on Easter Sunday.
Yes.
The airmen rescued
Good point.
Jesus back.
Yep, that's exactly right. Third day. Yep. And then goes on to verse 11, says, and they do not regard the majesty of the Lord. And it says, the Lord, your hand is lifted high, but they don't see it. God is active. He's doing things. He's obvious, but their eyes are blinded. It's so painful, isn't it? But it goes on to say, let them see your zeal for your people and be put to shame. So here, Isaiah is looking to the future, and he's seeing God's blessing and how he's going to redeem the nation of Israel. And the world's going to see that, and they're going to be ashamed at how they oppressed those people and how they didn't embrace the God of the universe and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he goes on to say, let the fire reserved for your enemies consume them. It's not going to be good for those people that reject God. They're going to be consumed by his fire. Then it changes a little bit in verse 12. It says, Lord, you establish peace for us. All that we have accomplished, you have done for us. So this is an expression here that although the future looks bleak, there will be peace coming. And everything that they accomplish going forward is not because of their efforts. Isaiah helps them to look to God as the source of those accomplishments. It says all that we have accomplished. They're saying we've accomplished things, but all of it is because you, God, have done it for us. That's the right attitude. Everything we've done, we shouldn't be taking credit for it. We should be giving God the credit, no matter what that is. I had a hole-in-one once. It was God's blessing, right? Does any of you ever had a hole-in-one? Oh, you have. Okay, good. Verse 13, Lord, our God, other lords beside you have ruled over us, but your name alone do we honor. And this speaks to the oppressors that Israel had over the years. But still, God is the one whose name should be honored. He's rescued people in the past. He's going to rescue people in the future. And then verse 14 is pretty interesting. It said, they are now dead. They live no more. Their spirits do not rise. You punished them and brought them to ruin. So this is a thing of the past that he will save now as he has in the past. God is always faithful, is what this is speaking to. And then how he's faithful is here in verse 15. You punished them and brought them to ruin. You wiped out the memory of them. You have enlarged the nation, Lord. So this speaks to God taking away the oppressors and Israel having victory over them and blessing the nation of Israel. It says, you have enlarged the nation, Lord. You have enlarged the nation. He says it twice. He wants to add emphasis to that. You have gained glory for yourself. You extended all the borders of the land. And this is exactly what we're seeing today. Exactly what we're seeing today. I think I mentioned this to you before. Israel is a small country. Of the 200 plus countries in the world, Israel is the 97th in size of population. It's small. It's what, 8-9 million people is all? But economically, 29th most highest gross national product of any nation in the world, far exceeding what their size is. Militarily, 15th in the world. 15th in the world. Going back to the economics, Israel is more prosperous than Austria or Norway. And we think of those as pretty prosperous countries. Israel is more prosperous. Its military strength, 15th in the world, higher than Iran. And standing army, remember, 97th largest country in the world, population-wise, 8th largest standing army in the world. We see God working in Israel today.
Every person in Israel is in the army.
Well, that's one way to get to the number, right? So we see God working in Israel even today, positioning them to live out this verse 15, enlarging the nation, to gain glory for himself, extending the borders of the land. Well, verse 16 goes on to say, Lord, they came to you in their distress. When you disciplined them, this is speaking of Israel, they were distressed, they were oppressed, but they turned to God finally. He had to discipline them, but they did turn to God. And they were so oppressed, it says they could barely whisper a prayer. Boy, that's a sad state. It says, as a pregnant woman about to give birth writhes and cries out in her pain, so were we in your presence, Lord. Again, speaking back to earlier, where the pain of the nation is so great, and he's comparing it to a woman in childbirth. But they were in the presence of God, and they knew it all the time. And it says in verse 18, we were with child, we writhed in labor, but we gave birth to wind. We have not brought salvation to the earth, and the people of the world have not come to life. So when they were in distress, they weren't productive for the Lord advancing his kingdom. But now they are. And then verse 19 says, but your dead will live, Lord. This is really fun. Their bodies will rise. Let those who dwell in the dust wake up and shout for joy. Your dew is like the dew of the morning. The earth will give birth to her dead. What's going on there? Well, let's look at Daniel. Where are you, Daniel? Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and other everlasting contempt. The resurrection of the dead. Right there. Isaiah speaks to it again thousands of years before Christ. Not thousands, hundreds of years, centuries before Christ. Then verse 20 says, go, my people, enter your rooms. Now this sort of speaks to the Exodus. during the Passover, where God told the people, something's coming. Get inside, paint your door frames with blood, because you need to protect yourselves. Verse 20, go my people, enter your rooms and shut the doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while. So this speaks to something again in the future, until his wrath has passed by. I just want to read that Exodus passage where it says, take a bunch of hyssop, dip it into the blood in the basin, and put some of the blood on the top and both sides of your doorframe. None of you shall go out the door of your house until morning. When the Lord goes through the land to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the top of the sides of the doorframe and will pass over the doorway. He will not permit the destroyer to enter your house and to strike you down. Sort of sounds similar here, where God says, go, my people, enter your rooms and shut the doors behind you. Hide for a little while until his wrath has passed by. God's going to deal with the oppressors of Israel. Israel has to protect themselves during that time, and the way they do that is to gird themselves. And then verse 21 says, see, the Lord is coming out of his dwelling to punish the people of the earth for their sins. Judgment is coming. The earth will disclose the blood shed on it. The earth will conceal its slain no longer. So the innocent who are killed by the oppressors are going to come to life, as we see, and they're going to testify against the murderers. And the earth is going to be an active participant in that. Don't know how that actually works, but somehow it does. Because the earth is going to be crying out for the blood of the innocents. And we see that in Proverbs, where it says 6 things are the Lord hates, 7 are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood. Judgment is coming. I want to use the word revenge, but that's not the right word. But the pain and the oppression that Israel has suffered, justice is going to be served, and it's going to be served in the end times. So the lesson for us, I think, in our time, besides remembering the faithfulness of God and having the hope for the future, is that we should be encouraged that to count our troubles as nothing. That's what he's telling Israel to do. Have faith. It's going to be better. And waiting for the glory that's going to be before us. And I'm reminded of Romans, where it says, Paul says, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed to us. That's what he's encouraging Israel to do. You're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to have a lot of suffering. There's going to be a lot of oppression. But the day is coming. The day is coming when God will be glorified. So that's chapter 26.
Worship the King, all glorious above. Oh, gratefully sing His power and His love. Our shield and defender, the Ancient of Days, a brilliant in splendor and